This lesson is about sung, or, well, as I said before, the closest thing we can get to it is to relax, but it's not really to relax. It's like when you're in a totally white environment, flat, and of course you really can't see anything because there's no little bumps in order for the light to reflect off of. There's no shadows or anything, so you get to what's called snow blindness. You just can't, you don't know where you're going because the surrounding area is so perfect. And it's the same with sung. The movement is so perfect that you just can't feel your joints moving. We try, first of all, to get this happening in the hands, because the hands are really the most important part, especially in the beginning with Taiji, because the hands manifest what your chi is actually doing. Not right in the beginning, because you're just learning the movements, of course, and it's very difficult to get that happening, but later on the chi is said to manifest in the fingers and the hands. And so your hand movements become so perfectly rounded that the joints can't see any protruding bits, in order that you feel the movement happening. For instance, you go like this. Of course, you know that you've felt your hand move because there's a sharp bit there. But you go like this. No sharp bits, absolutely perfectly rounded. And the body is the thing that's making the movement happen from side to side, so you can't feel your arms moving at all. In particular, you can't feel your wrists. For instance, if I get to here and go, okay, I felt my wrist moving. Incorrect movement. So really, sung is a way of showing you, telling you when you're doing an incorrect movement. And when you start to get into sung, it will be a revelation to you into what Taiji is really all about. You really don't start to notice anything about Taiji or to feel any benefits from it until you begin to get into the realm of internal chi flow, being totally attached to what your external movement is doing. So when you're making movements with your wrists, especially, see, it's on the end now. Anyone can do that and not feel anything moving because the wrists aren't moving. See, they're just coming like this. But now, as soon as you start to make change from a yin hand to a yang hand, for instance, that's a yin hand, by the way, that's a yang hand. As soon as you start to change from a yin hand to a yang hand, you're going to feel the movement happening unless you're moving in harmony with what's happening internally, with your internal chi flow. So you're doing a move like this. In the beginning it'll take a little bit of concentration to get that happening so perfectly that you don't actually feel the wrists changing from yin to yang. You really have to concentrate on it. And you'll of course, always when you're doing this, when you come into a yin-shaped hand, you breathe in. And as you change slowly into a yang-shaped hand, you breathe out. And that's why it's imperative that when you're doing your Taiji, or any internal martial art, and you're doing a change from yin to yang, as I said before in previous lessons in this series, you must change from yin to yang, in your hands in particular, over the whole stroke of the movement. So the beginning move in Taiji, it's not like this, or it's not like this. I felt my hands move, because they're not moving perfectly in harmony with the circle that the arms are making. The arms make a circle, don't they? See that? And later on you'll learn that this is actually an incorrect movement. So what lots of people have done is, modern masters have said, oh, okay, there must be circles, that every movement must be circular. So how can this be circular if I'm stopping and starting, you see? What they don't know is that the weight must change, of course. That's another classic. So if your weight changes when your hands come up, from, for instance, at a very simple level, which is again incorrect because I'm double weighted here, but just to explain it, when you move forward and your hands come up, and then you start to sit back, what do the hands do? They make a circle on the end, don't they? Small circle. But that's actually incorrect, because although you've got weight change, and now you've got sung in your hands because it's moving over the whole stroke of the movement perfectly, you've still got double weightedness, and that's incorrect. The only time you should be double weighted in any Taiji form is here and here when you finish, beginning and end. All through the middle, you're never double weighted, and it applies to the very first movement you make in your Taiji form. So the movement actually goes like this. If you look at the weight changes here, as I bring my hands up, the weight will slowly change to the right leg, and the waist will turn to the right slightly, and then the weight will come forward onto the ball of the right foot, then it will come over to the left foot as your waist turns to the left, then it will go back to the heel on the left foot as your waist turns back to the front. So what your weight has actually done is a circle like this, in keeping with what the Taiji classics tell us about Taiji. And that's the correct way to even do the very first movement of your Taiji. That's why Taiji is difficult. Modern masters have said, oh, okay, or some old masters some way back said, oh, it's too difficult for people to learn, so let's just tell them to do this. Incorrectly. Certain moves, of course, must be taught incorrectly in the beginning, but if you start teaching very, very important aspects of your Taiji incorrectly, then the student will keep that forevermore, and it's very difficult to get out of that having learnt it at a very basic level. So right from the beginning you must learn about sung and the weight transference and yin and yang and double weightedness. You must never have double weightedness in your hands either. I do make one compensation when I'm teaching beginners, however. I don't teach them about the yin and yang in the hands first up, because it really does get a little bit too difficult then. And you must remember that we Westerners just don't have the time to learn Taiji correctly. It used to take 6 years to learn the old Yang style, Yang Lu Chan's form of Taiji Chuan. 6 years. People want to learn it in 6 months, even if that. 6 weeks. People go and do a 2-week course and learn Taiji. Oh, it's beyond me, you know. You just can't, you just don't, you might as well throw your money down the drain as to go and do those sort of classes. So that's why it's quite difficult in the beginning, and that's why we have Yang Ching Fu's form, of course, to make the whole thing easier for the learning of the Yang Lu Chan's form. Actually learning 2 forms gets you there quicker than just learning the one Yang Lu Chan's form to begin with. That's why I always advise stark beginners, at least, to start on Yang Ching Fu's form rather, which is all slow movements, no fast explosive movements in there. No really low, well, just a couple of really low movements, no leaps in the air or anything, until they can get on to the old Yang style, which is, that's where Taiji got its name, the supreme ultimate boxing, from the old Yang style, not necessarily from the new Yang style, which was really made for older people and sick people so that they could get the great benefits that Taiji has to give without the greater amount of athleticism required for the old Yang style. But getting back to sung, so that's the first thing that you'll learn, is to get your hands moving in complete harmony. Just do it with one hand first. Just maybe bring it up like this. You can actually do the first movement of your Taiji form if you like, and try to get both hands working, but I suggest just drop one hand by your side And then just get one hand going over like this. Just turn your body a little bit to the right. And here's the danger point. There. When the hand just begins to change from a yin-shaped hand to a yang-shaped hand. Now this is okay going across here. It's still changing, by the way. Now as it comes back, this is a danger point. Right there, when the hand starts to change back to a yin-shaped hand on an inhalation. Now that's okay there. There's another danger point again when it starts. You'll find that when you come across here and you start to change to a yang-shaped hand, your hand will go you'll get little stops and starts. And that's the thing to concentrate on. Really concentrate on getting your hand changing without feeling the wrist movement. In other words, when you get to here, don't go like this. Rather, move your wrist down underneath your fingers. That's the secret of, if there's any secret, that's the secret of Sung. You're doing a move in your Taiji form, like brush knee twist step, where you do this movement. Rather than thinking, lift the fingers up from the wrists, flexing your wrist, rather than think of flexing your wrist, think of pushing the underside of your wrist out through here. In other words, this side of your wrist goes faster than the fingers, pushing forward, thus causing your hand to make a yang-shaped hand. And you'll find you've got a much easier task to get into a Sung mode, doing it that way. In fact, that's the correct way to do it. Because in a strike, you have to release from this hand. That's a yin-shaped hand, that's a yang-shaped hand, as I said before in previous lessons. You have to strike, releasing that yang energy built up in that yin-shaped hand. And the only way to strike doing that is to push this out past your fingers, leaving your fingers behind, rather than going. That's a purely physical movement, you see. You've lost your energy straight away, and now it's a purely physical strike. It's one of the secrets of Taiji as well. Striking internally with internal energy or internal force, you must allow your body to make your hands change from yin to yang, rather than you changing your hands from yin to yang. That's a physical movement. So when you're doing this move, you push your wrist forward. So when you do it quickly, of course, or with Fa Jing power, that becomes very obvious. You see what the fingers do when I'm going to do this move here. See? See how the hand vibrated as it went forward. You can't do that if you're controlling it, you see? And that's simply because the wrist is so relaxed, or so Sung rather, that when the movement starts to come out, the hand is simply left behind for a split second, you see? It's actually left behind. And then when it makes contact, it goes like this, thus releasing that energy into the opponent. But if you're controlling it all the time, tension creates stoppages of qi, or slows down the qi flow in your body. So you, stopped, stopped, stopped. That's why when we punch in a Sung manner, the hand, exactly what I did just then, the hand vibrates at the end, because the wrist is so relaxed to start with. So rather than punching like this, which is block the energy, that's pure physical. See how the fist just explodes at the end, because it's the body doing the work. The body is pushing the hand out faster, the wrist out faster than the fingers and the hand can go, you see. So you get that happening. Totally relaxed, ready for more strikes to come. So that's your first exercise in order to get Sung happening. Of course, you must have all the other things happening as well, as you do in your Qigong. Tai Chi is Qigong, by the way. It's the highest form of moving Qigong. You must have your chin pulled in, the tongue on your hard palate. The energy must be centered down into the dantian. In other words, all you have to really think of here is just just sinking down into the dantian and down, right down in, through your heels into the ground. I'll use the word relax because it's a Western word and there really is no translation for sung. So when I say relax, I mean sung. So you're sinking down, totally relax your body as much as you can do without falling on the ground, of course. If you're totally relaxed, of course, you just fall on the ground. But you must just have that amount of internal energy there to hold you up. And so when you make the movements, you're only using exactly the right amount of muscle power simply to move your muscles into position. That's all you're doing. The body's doing the rest. So when you start this, you must be already sunk down, the knees just a little bit bent to start with. And this should feel wonderful to do. If it doesn't feel wonderful, then you're not into sung yet. You'll have to do a bit more training. Now you'll notice that the circles will actually get smaller and smaller. You see, the internal flow of energy is minute. And in order that we get our external movements to emulate that internal flow of energy, our external movements must become smaller and smaller and smaller as well. So that by the time you get up to doing the highest levels of Taiji, the small frame form, for instance, the opening move, is literally, at a basic level, it's that. But in order to get that emulated with your internal flow of energy, in order to emulate sung, or to get sung, that's your first movement of your Taiji form. There's your second movement. That's your third movement. And so on. That's taking a right up to single whip, and I've hardly done a movement yet, really. Someone watching can hardly see any movement there. They're saying, "You're not doing Taiji. I don't see you doing this, and I don't see you doing this, and really low stances, so I look really amazing." But that is basic Taiji. This is advanced Taiji, because your external movements are now emulating what your internal movement of energy wants to do. And once you get to that stage, everything changes. You can even change just the circumstances in which you find yourself if you don't like them. Because once your chi, external chi, is emulated with your, is attached to your internal flow of energy, and you're in a sung mode, that's when your mind has its fullest power to do things for you. Some people like to call it God. You get in touch or in tune with God, or in tune with the universe, in other words. That's what Taiji is all about. That's the main power of Taiji, is to have things changed. We use the fighting art because it's easier to get there using that. But fighting is not the ultimate aim. The ultimate aim, the ultimate goal, is first of all great good health, which Taiji will help to give you, along with change of diet and more exercise, etc. But the main thing is to get higher even still than that, and to go totally into a sung mode and get in tune with the universe. Once you get one hand going, then you can do the other one in opposition to what the other one's doing. And that's even more difficult now, because there's the danger point here. You've got to watch two hands now. You've got to have two hands changing to sung. Total harmony with your breathing. Always, when you're doing this, of course, you're doing yin and yang hands, so where do you breathe? Do you breathe in or out? Okay, the rule here is now, you breathe in on the right and out on the left. Now, what does this look like? Of course, it's very hard to talk when you're in a sung mode. This looks like a group of postures in the Taiji form, known as waving hands like the clouds, or wave hands in clouds. And that's the group of postures where you'll first of all feel sung. That's all I'm doing now, is wave hands like clouds, without the stepping, of course. So if you can get that happening with just there, and just there, not feeling your wrists moving at all, then you'll really find that your Taiji will jump up a couple of notches. Thank you, Sam.